Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. Here are today's topics. The Outrider is about to be released as a galactic chase ship. We're going to break down its kit and do some analysis. We'll speculate on the synergies of how it's going to work with the Rebel fleet and which ships. The developer insights we'll look through as we always do. Jyn Erso is getting an Omicron. It's territory war. We will discuss it for thoroughness, but at least for now, it doesn't seem to be a concern. And then we will wrap up, as we always do, with the free-to-play gearing of my roster. First up, the Outriders kit. This was a nice little surprise. I was expecting Rebel ship content. I was not expecting the Outrider, only because I wasn't thinking of the Outrider as a Rebel ship, because Dash wasn't, but considering Shadows of the Empire and the lore, Dash fits into that gray area of a Rebel. I think a lot of characters do. The basic illegal laser cannons. This is physical damage 3 times to the target and inflict critical damage down. When you pair that with the Falcon, the Outrider is going to be assisting a lot and potentially, if you're targeting different ships, spreading that critical damage down, which is a nice subtle mechanic to add survivability to the Rebel fleet, because what it's doing is reducing the damage output of the enemy. It's a nice little thing, even though it's a pretty simple basic. Next up here, the first special concealed concussion missiles. This is a big cooldown of 4, so we're probably not going to use it too many times during a battle, but it's physical damage 5 times to the target, dispel their buffs, and inflict target lock. That's unresistible. Each instance of damage reduces the target defense by 5% for the rest of the encounter, and Rebel allies will gain 5% turn meter for each crit. Now, in this image here, they show the TIE Fighter being targeted. If you target the TIE Fighter, it's going to have foresight up in most cases. It's going to evade that first hit. And then because it is a very evasive ship in general, it has a high chance of evading even more hits, which is going to just drive turn meter to the enemy capital ship. So I think what you actually want to do with this ability is to target the TIE Bomber if you're going up against the Empire. Because if you go and target the TIE Bomber, reducing its defense, and if you pair that with shield disruption from the Y-Wing, that's creating a nice synergy to rapidly go through a tank and be able to move on to the rest of the fleet a lot faster. Next up, the second special emergency repairs. So this has a unique mechanic here with download. It also says cooldown of 3. So this is actually an ability I'm going to want to see active within the game before I fully understand it. This is an AoE, recover 20% health and protection, and gain speed up. All Rebel allies are going to have their download progress increased by 20%. Download, the way that works is it's going to start at 0%. It will increase by 1% whenever a Rebel ally scores a crit, and that will be tripled if it is that ship's turn. And it will require 100% download progress to activate. So the way that sounds to me is I think you need to download before you can use this ability emergency repairs. So you need to wait until you hit 100% download, and then you can use this ability, where it will then give you 20% progress to using it again. But with a cooldown of 3, maybe that is a mistake. Maybe I'm not understanding this correctly. That's why this is one I want to see active first. Next up is the unique critical intel. The Outrider gains 60% critical chance. That is good because of all the critical chance or the crit hit mechanics within this ship. And it will have the granted ability of data transmission, and data transmission only exists until it's defeated. That's something I think we need to keep in mind. Data transmission is a one-time use ability. It will dispel all debuffs on all allies, recover health for all ships, and grant all Rebel allies Suprosa supercomputer. And this is one of those role-dependent abilities where attackers at the start of their turn, they are going to dispel stealth and taunt on all enemies and randomly inflict defense down. The tanks are going to recover health and protection whenever a tank is damaged, and support, they will inflict target lock and remove 20% turn meter randomly. Now, the reason I think we need to think about this ability and pay attention to it being only existing while the Outrider is around is we don't know how survivable this ship is going to be. There's a chance that early on, when we all have the ship at 4 stars for the unlock, the ship may not be very survivable. There might be an incentive to actually use this ability really quickly in order to grant all these role-specific abilities early on before the ship is taken out. So those are the kinds of things I'm going to be paying attention to in testing. And then the reinforcement here, undocumented modifications. Once you enter the battle, all rebel allies gain download progress for each rebel reinforcement called in by the rebel capital ship. Outrider gains crit damage up. What I think's interesting here is it probably has brought the Phantom back to relevancy. For a while now, I have not used the Phantom at all. The way battles go, you don't call in a lot of reinforcements. So it's usually been more beneficial to just bring in better ships as a reinforcement. But if you do use the Outrider as in that slot, the Phantom will increase the download progress a lot faster. I don't think that's how we're going to want to use the ship, but it's not a bad reinforcement overall. I think it's something that might be star dependent. Maybe at 7 stars or 6 or 7 stars, it's going to be on the starting lines, and maybe at lower stars, it's going to function better as a reinforcement. When it comes to the synergies for the Outrider, what I'm going to be paying particular attention to is how fast is this ship. Because that first special where it's granting turn meter to all rebel allies, that's basically mechanically functioning the same as Biston's U-Wing's special. So if the Outrider turns out to be a fast ship, it probably could replace Biston's U-Wing, which is a nice bonus for you players who have ignored Biston's U-Wing, because it may mean you no longer need to gear up Biston and Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, or both super annoying to gear. But the key component there is how fast is this ship, because the whole point of Biston is that if you get him to relics, it will outpace your opponents and allow your rebel fleet to start doing damage early. And even though this is going to make the rebel fleet much better, it's increasing the damage output, helping out the survivability. What it's not going to do is solve the problem for Grand Arena players in the Kyber division, where we need so many fleets on offense and defense. There are only 7 viable fleets. This does nothing to change the math on that. With those 7 viable fleets, that means 1 fleet of wiggle room where you can make 1 mistake. So what we still need are more capital ships, or at least ways to get our ships onto Tarkin or Mace Windu's fleets right now, which are capital ships that are not functional right now or don't have enough ships to be functional. What I'm hoping for is additional Rebel capital ship that then Falcon, along with the Y-Wing and the Outrider, and probably Cassian as a reinforcement, would shift over to the home one. And then we could get another capital ship designed around some sort of X-Wing mechanic, where we could have Red 5 or Luke's X-Wing, Biggs, and Wedge creating a rogue squadron or an X-Wing squadron to be another viable rebel fleet. And I talked about that a little bit, or at least alluded to some of those principles in my last talk video where I did the quarterly speculation for the next 3 months. With the developer insights, I like to just do a quick run through of these. Really all I thought that was important to address is the strategy tips. They bring up the data transmission ability. They say to use the first special at the start of the battle, and that the ship is flexible for starting or reinforcements. The only thing I think to really pay attention to in the testing is how survivable is this ship. If it's going to go down quickly, then maybe it's better as a reinforcement. Or maybe you don't use the first special and instead you just turn on the granted ability and let the Outrider die and let the granted ability mechanics boost up the rest of the Rebel fleet. Just sacrificing itself for that use. Those are the things that I think we need to highlight during the testing process. And now Jyn Erso is the latest to get an Omicron. With her, it is a Territory War Omicron. The Zeta was tweaked along with this though, so that is nice because that Zeta was always horrible. So that is nice for players who actually put that on, one of those players being my brother. But there is not a lot of use for Jyn right now outside of Territory Wars. What has been changed for the Zeta is now Rogue One allies are immune to buff immunity. That's going to help out the squad a lot because of the amount of buffs that get spread around. Chirrut throws a bunch of buffs around. What the Omicron is going to be doing for Territory Wars is Rogue One allies will gain max health, potency, speed. This is a type of Omicron we've been seeing a lot. Embo, Zam, I think Phasma, these types of Omicrons which boost a team, share some health, damage, or speed, some variation of that. There's not damage in this case, but there is potency, which is going to be good for Cassian, because Cassian, the explosives are influenced by how many debuffs that are spread around. And whenever a Rogue One ally's buffs expire during an enemy turn, Jyn is going to gain turn meter, and all allies are going to recover health and gain roll bonuses. And that portion there is why it was important to change that Zeta, because if there was buff immunity applied, then the buffs would be stopped and the mechanics of this Omicron wouldn't really be working. So it would be a way to stop the benefits of this Omicron. But really, no one is going to be putting Territory War Omicrons on, so all of this is moot. But what I am interested to watch out for is if we get more Territory Battle Omicron. Have I been saying Territory Wars? Territory Battles. So if we get more Territory Battle Omicrons, what it could imply is that we are getting closer to getting our next territory battle. We're about due for one. It's been a while since Geos has been active. I don't know if anyone has completely starred out light side Geos, but players are getting closer. Guilds are getting more and more stars, and it might be time to introduce that next. It would be good content for all of us. And I imagine is if that does happen, CG is going to definitely be encouraging the Omicron use if we see that new territory battles. It's something where I don't want to write off seeing these territory battle Omicrons. They seem specifically designed and intended for characters that we don't really use or are for older territory battle content that no one really cares about. It might be something that newer players are tempted by, but they really shouldn't consider. It's just things to pay attention to. Also, role-based bonuses. I think that was where cut off the screen. But we will move on. And now to wrap up, as we typically do when I have gearing to show, the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This is the gearing that I did just before this current Grand Arena, so on April 4th is when I did this. Jedi Master Kenobi, I am one ultimate ability from... I stopped doing the 100 crystal refreshes, so a little slower there. Iden Verso, just promoting her. There's no reason to add those Kairos anytime soon, so I'm leaving her where she's at. She's plenty good at lower gear. For the ship, mostly taking Second Sister, promoting and working towards her. I've been speculating that she might be the odd one out with Inquisitors. 8th brother pretty cheap to gear 8. That's why I pull. Actually, let me move this for a second so that this is legible. Just wanting to show the various gear on the Inquisitors. They're kind of a pain to gear. 8th brother, though, is pretty friendly up to gear 9. Gear 9 is when he starts needing Kairos, and the 1 stun gun he needs is at that gear 9 threshold. But other than that, they are fairly friendly. Good morning, guard. I've been talking about him for, I don't know, 10 months, like approaching a year, where I am just betting on him being needed for something very soon, particularly Sign of Django, and now that we're getting this Book of Boba Fett content, I'm expecting a touch-up or a rework, so he gets to be geared up. I am ready for something to happen, and hopefully I'll never have to talk about it again after the change occurs. We're going to look at the Star Killer stuff. I am just right on the verge. I couldn't do it for this week. I really wanted to. My brother was able to hit it free-to-play, but I am a gear 12 piece short, and I'm relic materials short from being able to unlock Star Killer right now. But I'll have them for next week of Grand Arena. So I want to add a couple levels just to make a couple of my defensive teams a little bit better. That's why Dash is getting taken up to relics. But I don't want to draw too much attention to these characters, so I don't want to take them all up. Like right now my Mon Mothma team is getting underestimated, so I don't take Katarn up to relics because I don't want my opponents to see the relic and be a little bit more careful. So I throw on a couple of these pieces just to increase the speed, the health pool, some of the damage. Make him more dangerous, but I'm going to hold off until I'm ready to go in for Star Killer. With Darth Talon, I was about to do the same. I think I ultimately end up relicking her just because with that Darth Revan team where I use her on defense, she's kind of blends into the background. So with the relic, that's not going to stick out as much as Katarn does. Mara Jade, this piece I was debating, and now I'm glad I put it on, because I don't have the pieces I need to take her up to relic, but I'm using her on offense and she works fine. But the big thing here was Bistan. I was about to relic Bistan, and I'm glad I didn't, because now with the Outrider, I'm going to wait even longer on Bistan, and maybe I don't need to give him those Kairos. And we add relic levels to a few characters. Canderous, I take up to 3 to make him a little bit more dangerous. Cat up to 4. I don't want to give too many of these relic materials over to these characters right now because it'll just delay Star Killer, and I just want to make sure I have them for next week. Looking at the rest of this, yeah, this is when I decide to just get it over with and do the relic, take her up a couple levels, which hopefully will have my defenses do a little bit more work this season of Grand Arena, which actually I should mention. There's a few things I should mention. One, this is going to be my first season where I'm a part of the Grand Arena Center, so over on Twitch, the Escape Podcast does their Grand Arena Center. I'm going to be in it this season. That I'm very excited for and looking forward to. I wanted to improve a number of these ships, and pilots is what I'm doing here now. The other thing is roster reviews. I have been keeping open to subscribers to the channel until I hit 1,000 subscribers, which I'm getting closer and closer to, and probably sometime this month I will hit that threshold. So if you want a roster review and haven't had one yet, go over to the Discord. There's a roster review channel there. Throw in your ally code over there. Anyone who is on the Discord channel prior to me hitting 1,000 subscribers is going to be kept as a early adopter to the channel, and they will be allowed roster reviews. After that, roster reviews are going to be limited to Patreons, donations, etc. I put a lot of time and effort into them. So it's something that as the channel grows, the opportunities are going to be a little bit less. I won't have as much time to dedicate towards those things as the number of players becomes unmanageable. Other than that, I've been watching Rebels and for the most part enjoying it. It's not as bad as I was afraid of. It's better than the worst of Clone Wars. Like, it's better than season 1 of Clone Wars. So I think that's an adequate baseline to keep me entertained. I've been putting episode reactions over on the Discord, just little blurbs, not really a review of episodes, more just weird things that occur to me as I watch an episode. I'll probably be ranting about it on the forthcoming Grand Arena videos. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.